That's right.
WACE India. What is WACE India?
WACE is the Western Australian Certificate of Education. It's a higher secondary qualification backed by the Government of Western Australia, governed by a statutory authority called Schools Curriculum and Standards Authority.
Welcome to WillTalks, everybody. Today I'm with a phenomenal person. Her name is Faiza Mirza, and she's the Chief Operating Officer of WACE India.
That's right.
WACE India. What is WACE India?
Thank you, Will, for having me here today. WACE is the Western Australian Certificate of Education. It's a higher secondary qualification backed by the Government of Western Australia, governed by a statutory authority called Schools Curriculum and Standards Authority. We refer to it as SCASA for short. SCASA is the governing body, and we work very, very closely with SCASA. WACE has very recently received equivalence in India by the AIU, the Association of Indian Universities, a body that grants equivalences to various boards to be treated as equally as any other Indian board. So the students coming out of that board get accepted in the Indian universities as well. So that's the idea behind the equivalence part of it, because we understand not all students studying international boards go abroad to study. A large part of the percentage stays in India. So it's important that the Indian universities accept them, right? So that's the reason why this equivalence part is important. So in 2023, after almost like a 25 or maybe 30 years, any other international board received equivalence in India after IB. And this is also the first government international board in India. To give you a little bit of a context, Western Australia is a state in Australia. Australia doesn't have a federal board, it has a federal framework. And different states in Australia adapt that framework and develop their own curriculum. So it's not a new experiment. WACE is a 111-year-old board. It's been around for way, way longer than IB, but it's only gone global in the last 37, 38 odd years, over 3 decades. It's present in 16, 17 different countries, mostly Southeast Asian countries. So it's there in your Vietnam, Singapore, China, Malaysia, Indonesia, Laos, a lot of those countries. Proximity with Australia. It's also now there in Bangladesh and Turkey as well. And now in India, right? So that's the expansion and the global reach of the curriculum. While it's present in these countries, it's accepted globally and very well respected in that aspect. Also because Australian primary education and middle years education is considered to be by far globally very, very highly respected and very, very good in that sense. The foundation is very strong. And I was talking about the federal framework that Australia uses. So that's the early years learning framework, EYLF, which is again a very beautiful framework. Different states have adopted it and developed their own curriculum. In my opinion, Western Australian falls really in line with the Indian context. So if you look at NEP 2020 closely, you'll see a lot of references or you'll see a lot of similarities between WACE and what our country's education policy, the future education policy talks about. It's like naturally, organically mapped to some of those areas. But when you also understand one thing that Australia is pioneering in some of these areas, like incorporating skills, incorporating sport, and vocational education training. So these are some of the areas that I think Australia has phenomenally outdone itself, and WACE in particular, this curriculum.
So one of the things that I'm getting is this is not new.
Yes.
It's just that we are hearing it for the first time.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
And talking about boards, people in India, we're very aware of the CBSE board,
Right.
the IC, CISE board.
Yes.
There are the state boards.
Mhm.
And when I was talking to Mrs. Indrani from the Parak, she actually mentioned there are 68 boards in India. And I was like, wow, like
Yeah.
we did not know that there were 68 boards in India. So is this the latest board to enter into India after the IB board and the IGCSE board?
Yes, this is a fairly latest, and like I mentioned, the first foreign government,
What do you
international
mean
government.
by government? Like isn't the Cambridge board a government board, or an IB isn't? Is it that not like a government board?
No, no. So both IB and Cambridge are private organizations. In fact, IB, when you talk to them, and this is after my very recent interaction with IB World School head, Miss Angela Michael, who came for the TICE conference. She told us that IB is not a board, it's a program. And schools get authorization to run that program in their schools.
So the full form of IB, the B is not board.
International Baccalaureate. No. Oh, wow. Thank you so much. You said that. That is the misconception. And that's actually, I mean, I can't blame you. Largely, a lot of parents.
CB, SC.
Yeah.
Right? Everything is.
Everything is like that, right? No, IB is International Baccalaureate and not International Board. A lot of parents still think, a lot of schools still think it's IB, International Board. But it's no, it's not that.
I've seen IB schools put on their boards saying that IB board.
And the word international is now used very, I would say, casually.
Yeah.
Like almost every school wants to call themselves international. Govind International.
Right. So,
I really don't know what is international about it. Unless it's affiliated with an international board, then it makes sense, right? So IB for one is not a board, it's a program. And they have very, very categorically middle years program, primary years PYP, MYP, IBDP. Those are their programs for which you apply for authorization. You become a candidate for 2 years. You show certain criteria, certain areas, which then IB considers and gives you the authorization to run those programs in your school, right? There's a certain fee attached to it. You pay that fee, you get your trainings done. So it's a beautiful program. It's a lovely framework, right? But it's not a board. Cambridge is used to be part government, part private. Now it's fully private because it's been taken over by the Cambridge Press. It's no more with the university. It's taken over by the Cambridge Press. So of course it becomes completely. It's an organization run privately by the Cambridge Press. Western Australian Certificate of Education is the state government board. So think of a Karnataka state board or a Maharashtra state board going global. That is what is happening.
this is super legit.
Super legit.
Because this is literally the kind of board that a student in Australia
Yes.
would be studying, right?
Yes.
Because for the CIE, or the Cambridge International Program, when I spoke to my cousins, my nephews in the UK, although they were in a school in the UK, they were not doing the IGCSE.
Yeah.
Because they're doing the GCSE.
GCSE, that's a
Correct?
state board.
And this is different.
Yes, absolutely.
So here you're almost saying that what you're saying, or rather what I'm understanding, is it's the same educational system, or the principles are the same.
Yes.
However, you may have contextualized certain things for India.
Yes, absolutely.
So what do you think is stays common or could be different when a board like the WACE comes to India?
Yeah. So one thing I really want to highlight here is that this is not just happening at K-12 space, it's also happening at higher ed space. So Western Australian education is entering India, or has entered India in a big way. From K-12 space all the way to higher ed. I don't know if you've heard, but the University of Western Australia is also setting up 2 of its campuses in India, one in Mumbai and the other one in Chennai. Having said that, I think what we're really trying to create is a complete pathway, a complete system, which then, of course, helps the child in many ways, from giving that global exposure, but also Australia, because the idea is to recruit children, or,
make them globally competent, right? They
globally
can go
competent,
anywhere.
right? Exactly. The other thing is that making it locally contextualized, I think it's very important that because they're a government, they're extremely sensitive to the understanding of why it's important for Indian students to remain relevant and remain rooted to their own culture. So, which is why they pay a lot of emphasis on making sure that schools have the flexibility to teach Indian history, regional history, Indian geography, social sciences, and also languages. So we are a country of beautiful multiple languages. Just because you're an Australian board, why should you not teach any of those languages and focus on English only, or French, or Japanese, or Chinese? I personally, rather that my son is studying in Maharashtra, studies Marathi in school, and Hindi, of course, right? In fact, they already have a Hindi, Tamil, and Punjabi curriculum in place. So that's the extent of flexibility that you're giving.
Contextualization.
Now, if you are a school in Maharashtra and you want to teach Marathi, all you have to do is figure out what syllabus. I mean, you have your state syllabus, you want to teach that, you send it to them, they will endorse it and assist you in planning your assessments. So the assessments will happen on that model, but what you're teaching is, of course, locally relevant, right?
That's amazing, because what I've noticed is most of the time, at least in Indian schools, when the board changes or the assessment style changes, that's when instructional pedagogy changes.
Yes.
Right? Everyone's kind of in some ways aligning to how the test is being conducted, right?
Absolutely.
So how do you test in terms of what is the way
there are
that you all are testing?
Right. So one thing that I want to obviously bring at the onset is that there are no specific subjects from grades 1 to 10. There are learning areas. There are 8 learning areas, which include all the competency skills, the knowledge aspect, and also subject material. But it's very interlinked. It's interdisciplinary, it's multidisciplinary. So there are learning areas that talk about, for example, science, but it will not limit to physics, chemistry, and biology. It will have a multidisciplinary approach. So math can talk about science, history can talk about science, inventions, a lot of those things. English can be incorporated in that. Sport can come in and play a role. Music can come in and play a role. But what we are doing essentially is science. So that is how they've structured it. It's where the lesson plans are very beautifully put together to make sure that all of these areas are mapped into that learning.
So, one thing that comes to my mind is that most schools who are affiliated to all the traditionally available boards at this time in India, if they want to change, like if the school leader feels like, I want to do experiential learning, or I want to do project based learning, or I want to create cross curricular links, or I want to bring in global perspectives, many at times they're not able to, because everything is so watertight and compartmentalized in some way that if they have to do any of this, they've already broken some sort of guidelines, because many a times even the boards send out what is the ideal amount of time and periods you need to allocate.
Yes, I understand.
And it may be very different. So are you saying this this
and
system can
and with this approach, I think the term that I'm looking for is fluidity. There's a lot of fluidity in the way you can actually create those kind of magical connections and interdisciplinary lessons, and the board assists you with that. The challenge is not sadly the board or the management. The challenge is how the teacher is understanding and being able to implement it. If you ask me today,
continue to be a challenge. So are you addressing that?
We are addressing that challenge first,
because currently no board is addressing that.
So I'm going to take a step back here and tell you what is our motive and our biggest goal when it comes to establishing WACE in India. It's a government board. We're not here to, meet targets of 100 schools in 1 year and 200 schools in 3 years. Over a period of 4 or 5 years, we want to be able to establish ourselves with, let's say, 100, 150 schools. But what's more important is that we get each school right when it comes to implementation. So for the board, it's very important to have that right standardization. We don't want one WACE school to be doing exceptionally well and the other WACE school struggling with like 100, 150 students. What we really want is to all WACE schools operate on a similar standard. Now, how do you do that? We're not talking about infrastructure here. You could have XYZ facilities, the other school can have any other facilities. We're talking about simply the implementation, and the foundation of implementation lies with the teachers, with the educators, not even the management. The management will come in the admin level of incorporating the board and whatever, the fee structure and all of that, right? At the end of the day, it's your teacher that will ensure that the board is being implemented in the right spirit, in the right level. And are we firstly implementing, and are we really doing it justice? So that is very important. So which is where we come in. Professional development or teacher development and the trainings are a part of our offering. It is not something that you have to, or as a school, you have to pay separately for, or, invest in heavily.
This is a game changer.
Yes.
And the reason I say this is a game changer is because most boards that I have currently experienced with do not enter teacher training.
Yeah.
They say, we will conduct the exam, full stop.
Yeah.
Right? And that's all.
Yeah.
And teacher training is your responsibility.
Yes.
But the fact that you're and then you're dependent on school leaders,
Yeah.
school leader budgets, finding people
Yeah.
who understand great training methods. But the fact that you are in putting this as a part of your service or
Yeah.
as a part of the scope of work just takes off so much off a
Yeah. So I'll tell you one thing. When we were talking to the board and we were going through this understanding of how we're going to do this in India and, for a lack of better word, negotiations, we wanted to let them know about the challenges that the Indian international schools are facing when it comes to implementation. And there are three very strong areas that we identified. One is the teacher development that I just spoke about. The other one is the lack of support or assistance that you can get from the board directly to answer or to address those issues, right? And the third one is that all Indian international schools are established as a society, trust, fund, whatever, right? They're having to pay money outside of the country. IB pays to Singapore, Cambridge pays to UK. Now, what happens is there are several challenges, financial challenges.
you need to fill the 15 CB, and there are
Right. So much of
there's
it,
a lot
right?
of red tape.
With us and our presence, now we're official associates of the government of Western Australia. Schools directly pay to us in India. They don't have to pay anything outside of the country.
So money also stays in the country.
Money stays in the country. What we do with Australia is our business. So the school's not involved in that, but they are directly talking to us. Similarly, all their challenges, there has to be someone who understands the ground reality. Somebody sitting in Australia, in Western Australia, in Perth, may not be able to understand a school that the school is facing in, let's say, Chembur or Borivali or somewhere in Bangalore, right? Only somebody local who understands the landscape, who understands what the school's challenges are, will be able to know that. Now, how do you bridge that? So that is where our presence come into play. And we make sure that there's constant hand holding. We don't want to leave the school alone. The first year, definitely not. In fact, very proudly, I want to tell you that we've established our first 3 schools in India, 2 in Bangalore, 1 in Bidar. And they've completed the first semester, so essentially the first 6 months. We've already done 3 trainings in person with Australian trainers. We do a weekly check-in with them. We do a fortnightly check-in with the Australian team. We've done almost 4 visits to their school. So that's the level of and the extent of hand-holding.
Amazing. I mean, that is what makes the school. Actually, that's what makes it work.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they don't, the
There is
principal doesn't have to figure it
no other
out.
formula
Yeah.
to make sure that the curriculum is implemented in the right light, and that is what is important for them.
What's the kind of school that should consider the WACE program right now?
See,
I also run a school.
Oh, wow.
That's also something that I do. And I'm really, really considering if I can bring WACE
right.
to my parents.
Mhm.
We have about 88 students right now. The
Right.
school has capacity of about 500.
One.
And as a, I'm wearing a school leader hat now.
Yeah.
And as a school leader, I feel like I want to bring like I want to create my school as an intimate learning environment.
Yeah.
I want to make it more community based. I want to make it project based. I want
Yeah.
to make it experiential because I also feel that over time now, the Gen Z parents, right? A lot of these parents want that customization. Parents want that personalization. Earlier, big was great. People loved big schools, but I think today people want to go into more boutique schools,
That's true.
more micro schools.
So,
And will this allow me?
So I'll tell you something very beautiful about the core ideology of WACE is it's a very child-centric kind of an approach, right? Remember I spoke about the early years learning framework. In that framework, the child is at the center of the framework. And the 3 core areas that we focus is being, belonging, and becoming.
Oh, being, belonging, and becoming.
Right?
Very similar to the New Zealand Tawiriki system, I think.
New Zealand, Australia, very similar. And you know what happens is then everything around it needs to just facilitate that process for a child to be, to belong, and to become. And your end goal is the child needs to become his own person. How does a child become his own person? Isn't it a very tailored, very customized, very personalized approach? Not every child is the same. Not every child is going to become, it's not like a cookie cutter model, right? So that is the idea behind this framework. Now, if the framework is this, and if everything around it is meant to enable this, then naturally the way we are implementing it, the whole design, the whole structure is like that, right? So that answers beautifully your question of how the parents wanted more intimate, right? Also, what it does is it gives the child an opportunity to thrive in an environment where there's a lot of question, there's a lot of inquiry, there's a lot of research, that the ability to come up with what the no inhibitions, there are no inhibitions. So because there is nothing that we have to finish this much in this much time, you have those
Yeah.
boundaries and those guidelines with curriculums and courseworks के till grade 1 में इतना हो जाना चाहिए, grade 2 में ये हो जाना चाहिए. So those are not some of the criteria that define it. You just follow the child and you design the curriculum accordingly.
And this sounds extremely, flexible, extremely wonderful.
Yeah.
Parents, when I introduced another board, parents asked me, "Mera bacha pass ho jayega na?" And that is something that
sadly that's what parents are still worried about, no?
So when they study this way, are they also tested this way? And do kids really do well? Will Indian kids be able to do well in this system?
So to answer your question, do they also assess this way? Yes and no, because there's a very beautiful balance there. So if you remember, I told you in the beginning that it's a very beautifully mapped curriculum to Indian context, right? It cannot be entirely experiential and hands-on and inquiry-driven. That could be the pedagogical style, right?
Okay.
But the assessment and how do you measure the outcomes, there has to be something more tangible to it, right? And we understand that part of it. So one thing is that the entire curriculum is not focused on that one assessment, which is why it is not content-driven, right? But at the end of the day, there is a part of it which will be tested in a pen to paper kind of assessment model, and there'll be certain criteria. And 50%, not part actually, it's 50-50. And 50% of it is largely what the child has done throughout the year.
Wow.
So
amazing.
That is what that makes it very, very.
So now everything that a child does is worth it.
Absolutely.
In a way.
Absolutely.
So the idea of extracurricular, co-curricular, this is graded versus marked. Iska exam hai, iska exam nahi hai. Those things don't kind of come into play. So there are, I think, about 1,000 odd international schools in India today.
Yes.
And I think 200 of them are IB schools, about 600 odd, maybe 600, 700 odd schools, maybe the Cambridge school.
Yeah.
So many of those schools I know personally because I moved from where I was living to the city to put my kid in an international school. And after I put my kid in an international school and spending 6 months in the school, I was like, ye to Cambridge nahi kar rahe un log. And I went and spoke to the principal and she's like, you know what, till 8th standard, we do like this mix match and we do everything. And it's only in 8th that we give you a choice to join an international. I'm like, hello, I shifted my house, wife, kids, everyone to come to an international school. And you're telling me that this option is going to be available in 9th, 10th, which then got me to understand that most schools operate that way. That when they say they're international, it's mostly 9th and 10th or 11th and 12th. IBO comes in the 11th and 12th, or, IGCSE is in 9th and 10th. So what is your learning path for WACE? Do you start from as early as pre-primary?
I want to first tell you what I feel about what's happening. What you just spoke about.
I'm speaking as a parent.
Yes. And I understand that because I'm a parent. My child goes to an IB school now. I think it's criminal to do that to children. There's a world of a difference when we talk about learning styles. Okay. My child, for example, went to a Montessori. You know how Montessori's work, right? Very, very hands-on.
Exercising practical life.
Yeah, practical life, building life skills from the very beginning, right? And I thought he was a very natural fit to IB. But when I go out to look for IB schools, there are IB continuum schools, and then there are schools that will start from grade 10 or whatever. I don't want that. I don't want to put my child through a mixed curriculum, kind of a mixed assessment kind of a thing, and then eventually in grade 9th or 10th he gets to choose. I wanted to start that from the very beginning. PYP is a beautiful program. I would rather my child experience that from the very beginning. So that's one, right? But then when people do this, they are basically creating a big challenge for the child, because whatever mixed curriculum or whatever you've done with the child, now after going to ninth and 10th, it's a very separate way of assessment. It's a very different way of assessment. And that comes from the learning style that the child should have incorporated in grade 1. That whole
Parents need
inquiry
to
driven.
understand that.
Yeah,
that
parents need to
it's
really
not just like
understand.
padlo exam ke liye.
Parents and schools need to understand that you should not do that. Plus, your teachers, their teaching styles have to change. That whole idea of how are you going to make children independent learners? Okay, India is the only country where you'll probably hear of coaching classes for IBDP.
Yeah, I've heard that.
That defeats the purpose of
Tuitions for IB, I've heard it.
If you ask me, for me, whether it's WACE or IB, the idea is to make children independent learners, inquirers. They are tiny inquirers who want to constantly research, work their brain, think, figure out. You can't put them in a box of first you do this much, this is the content you have to stick to, then you do the examination. You could be doing anything else. If there's a framework, it just is easier to follow that framework and put structure to it. With this kind of a style, what happens is students struggle later on in senior grades, because these kind of frameworks seem very easy and you're going at the child's pace and all of that, but those independent learners actually qualify for a much higher level of testing and assessments.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So what's your learning pathway looking like? Do you have a pre-primary program, a primary program? Like when I become a WACE school, what do I get?
You get it full. It's a full thing. It's a full package.
K-12 or
Kindergarten to grade 12. Yeah. We're not breaking it. We understand the importance of foundation years.
So when I'm a WACE school, full WACE school.
Yeah.
Full.
You have received the equivalence. You're a school today running kindergarten to grade 10th or 12th or whatever. You get your establishment or your license to run kindergarten to grade 12 for first 3 years. The establishment is valid for 3 years. After that, there's a renewal, right? In those 3 years, of course, we know as a school, you may not be able to implement in all grades in year 1, but the idea is to grow it. So let's say in year 1, you're doing kindergarten 1 and 2 or 3. And the next year, that grows and it reaches up to grades 5 and 6.
Which is actually the best way to do it, right? Because the kids are then in that system.
So the learning style is very important. The foundation is very important. In fact, the WACE foundation is so strong. It's a very beautiful transition into IBDP also.
Fantastic.
Into middle years.
It opens up multiple opportunities.
Yes.
So there is a board exam. Is there a board exam?
Yeah.
And at what stages are these board exams?
So for India particularly, we told them that it's important that we have a board examination in 10th also. Otherwise, they didn't have it. They only had it in 12th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But for India, they're introducing board examination in grade 10th also.
Okay. And do you know which month that's going to be? Because I knew with another board here, we had a problem months.
No, it coincides with your Indian examination. Okay. So they follow 2 hemispheres, northern and southern.
Got it.
The southern hemisphere follows the Indian calendar, the academic calendar. So essentially, June is when you start your session and March is when you have your...
Perfect. Absolutely perfect.
So that's the cycle, right?
So in 10th, there's an exam.
10th, there is an optional board examination. If your students decide to stick to WACE in 11th and 12th also, they don't need to give the 10th examination.
Oh, cool.
It's optional. We don't want to put any kind of pressure on children, right?
So you reach 12th and you've officially finished the WACE program with a 12th degree, or what is it called? A diploma?
That is called WACE, Western Australian Certificate of Education.
Okay, like the Maharashtra State Board Certificate Examination, like that.
Yeah. So when you finish grade 12, you essentially come out with 3 certificates. One is your WACE, which is the certification. The other one is WASA, which is your, like a marks card, statement of marks, right?
Okay.
That's called WASA. And the third one is ATAR. Now, ATAR is the game changer here.
ATAR?
ATAR. That's the Australian Tertiary Admissions Rank. It is a country rank. If you have
sitting in India, I get a
Australian admission.
So I get an equivalence in Australia.
Yes.
So not just WACE has equivalence in India. Yeah. I also have equivalence in Australia.
So by the way, from the day your child starts WACE, kindergarten, 1, 2, whatever, your child is registered with the government of Western Australia. They receive
Wow.
an Australian student identification number. They're registered with
That's
the
amazing.
government. They're treated like Australian students. And the record is getting built up with the government of Western Australia. And that's a lifelong thing. Huh?
That's incredible. So,
Yeah.
when kids want to think of, going to countries like Australia to work or
Yeah.
to,
Oh, yes.
in the next phases of their lives, it becomes really, really
And
easy.
if they're going for higher education to Australia, especially to Western Australia, then they are local students and they are given those
Privileges.
and the government gives them bursaries as well for Western
Incredible.
Australia. So those are some of the
And for the ones who don't want to go abroad, can they do the NEET, JEE, engineering, doctor? Can they get into liberal arts,
there's
sciences?
something very interesting about the ATAR courses. In grade 12th, you have general courses and you have ATAR courses. To get ATAR, you should have picked up at least 4 ATAR courses.
Okay.
ATAR courses are generally higher level, like how you have high level English,
Yeah.
general English, high level maths, like that. So English definitely we recommend is a compulsory, because if you do ATAR English, you don't have to do any English proficiency tests for your global.
So no IELTS.
No IELTS,
nothing.
no IFL, nothing. Because you're an English speaking country, right? I mean, you're coming from an English speaking country. The other one is if you're doing, for example, sciences and you want to take up engineering, maths, medical or whatever, you take up ATAR biology, ATAR physics, ATAR chemistry. So automatically the academic depth and rigor is much higher. And as far as the competitive examination goes, I think there's just one mantra ke how do you crack these examinations? So wo cracking ke liye you will still go to a NEET coaching or you will still go to a
That is
JEE
exam
coaching.
testing.
That's exam testing. That is cracking.
Yeah.
But the knowledge of the subject matter and the depth, the academic rigor would have sufficed with it.
So the clarity of the concept,
in fact,
the
concepts will be
thinking,
way clearer.
all that will become very clear. It'll be easier.
Very easy.
And then they're just kind of getting used to how that exam is taken.
Absolutely.
So one thing that's standing out for me is the fact that this is a government board.
Yeah.
And the fact that the Indian government has accepted another government board come in. So that I think is incredibly powerful.
Oh, yes.
And schools that are considering WACE, I think should know that for parents, all the problems that parents have or doubts they have is that can be instantly kept at abeyance.
Yeah.
Because that's not a problem. It's got a 100% equivalence.
So I'll tell you one more thing. The other part of the support that we extend to schools, it is not just, it just doesn't stay till the extent of hand-holding schools and teachers. But if you want us to talk to your parents, be a part of your parent orientations, be a part of your marketing campaign, or assist you in your marketing campaigns, we do that as well.
Perfect.
In our previous establishments, we've actually brought in the Australian expert to engage with the parents and to help them understand the curriculum. And also our team, more India context, we explain parents what it is and how different it is and how your parents can get more aware about it.
And what about these two colleges that you spoke about? That
The UWA?
the WACE
So
setting up
that's the
college.
University of
Chennai?
Western Australia. Like this is the state board. That's the state university.
In Chennai and
In Mumbai. They're setting up two
Mumbai and
campuses.
Chennai. In Mumbai and Chennai, they're setting up two campuses,
Yes.
and kids from the WACE can go directly into that.
There. Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is incredible. I think this is such a gift
Yeah.
to schools across India,
Yeah.
especially in I mean, it could be anywhere.
Yeah.
I think I don't think we're talking about any particular.
I think the biggest challenge for parents and schools is also future pathways and what do you do with children after that. So
continuity, right?
Yeah. So here, that is what I find the beauty of this is how, it has the whole pathway carved out, right? One choice. But you also have all the other choices open, right? When it comes to global recognition, the top universities, Harvard, Stanford, Oxford, Cambridge, UCL, LSE, you name them, and they all accept WACE students because it's that well globally respected and recognized. In India, now that challenge is also not there because the AIU has granted the equivalence. So you're also recognized in the Indian universities. There are VET pathways, which are the vocational education trainings.
Which also the government of India really is pushing, right?
Absolutely.
With the NEP and.
So which is why I said very beautifully aligned with NEP. So a child is not interested in mainstream education or any of those pathways. You have the vocational education.
Incredible.
And one interesting aspect that I forgot to bring in this conversation is the sport integration. So you can't debate how Australia has championed the cause of sports with their children, right? Almost 92% of kids, school going children in Australia play an active sport throughout their school life.
Wow.
How do you think players are coming out? You see Olympics, you see their cricket.
Yeah, Australia dominates.
They're like that, right? In India, it's sadly less than 3%. So, what do we do about it? We are planning to host Olympics. Where are our kids? They're in school today if they have to play sport in
Yeah,
Olympics.
and most of the kids who are really good at sports, schools don't let them go.
So they go in for the NIOS or other
Yeah.
options. This board gives a lot of opportunity of sport integration and mainstream education, but also support children who want to play in a way that they don't have to give up mainstream education
So
or
there are.
make choices for that matter.
Yeah, that's beautiful. There are schools that in certain cities, I don't know if it's just a Mumbai thing, but there are schools that run in two shifts as well.
Yeah.
There's a morning shift and an afternoon shift. And there are some schools that run 6 days. There are some schools that run 5 days. Do you think that within that framework, maybe 27 hours a week or 30 hours a week, it's possible for us to do WACE with the 200 odd school working days?
Yeah.
Have you done that mapping and seen that there is enough time to do all this?
Yeah, largely it is possible.
Okay.
And in terms of requirements, both infrastructural and the kind of time you can give it to it, it's fairly straightforward. Infrastructure, if you're an existing CBSE school, let's say, and you're following some of those guidelines, you
Yeah.
are fairly falling in line with WACE requirements. There are not too many fancy requirements. Everything else is frills and feathers. But what's more important for them is if you're following the law of the land. So every state in India has a different policy when it comes to state NOCs, when it comes to infrastructure guidelines, early years, primary years. There are a lot of those things. That is more important.
So you got to be a recognized school. You got to be a legal recognized school.
Correct.
Yeah.
You have to have your paperwork in place. You have to have your policy work in place, whether it comes to your employees or student safety, security, child safeguarding. Those aspects. Remember, it's a government.
Yeah.
So they respect your government and your law of the land. So they're not going to impose their policies. But if you're following your policies and your law of the land is in place, that's fine.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the way WACE schools are operating, do you like what do you see in terms of when you think about I don't know, in Maharashtra we have some talk about certain languages coming in I don't know if it's there in Karnataka or in
You mean
Telangana.
foreign languages?
There are some, these languages have, like Marathi has to be there, or in history we have to teach a particular, these kind of things. So where does are there textbooks? Is this a textbook based system? Is there, like, where do you get material from?
Right. So for WACE, largely you don't need textbooks.
Okay.
It's a textbook free kind of a curriculum. They don't prescribe textbooks. You want to use it as a supplementary, you can. You want some references, you can. There's a lot of digital material available. So when I was talking about the fee structure, and I said everything is included in it, there's also a government LMS platform. And that platform is your universe for your digital content. When it comes to lesson planning, when it comes to worksheets, when it comes to teachers and students both, they get access to that library, that digital library. Not just access, they get trained on how to use it. Too much content can be overwhelming.
So when a school signs up with WACE,
you get access to that platform,
and you get a curriculum.
Yes.
For the whole K-12.
Yes.
And these are curriculums which are around those domains.
So they are very
daily curriculums, or like how does it work?
They are very, very well
Because for a principal who may want to think, how does it actually work?
Right.
Like, what's the daily operational?
So I'll tell you, there is a framework and there is a structure. Framework we've understood. It's a beautiful framework. There are learning areas and there are outcomes and there are ways to assess it, right? The actual implementation lies in the curriculum part of it, right? So they have not left it so loosely structured that it's left to the school's interpretation as to how they want to implement the framework. There are a lot of sample modules, sample lesson plans, and curriculum material or content which is available for teachers to get their references, right? Not just that, they're also guided. So they will teach you how to create your modules and how to create that assessment as well. There will be some sample modules. collaboratively, if in future you want to build a module, you want to build a sample lesson plan, they will share that also with the rest of the teacher community as well.
Brilliant.
So there's a lot of collaboration happening on that front as well, right?
So, considering the fact that this is a government board,
Yeah.
that means there must be certain standards already in place. For example,
yes.
when I look up US curriculum, I see the Common Core standards.
Yes.
But when I look at some other curriculums which may not be from governments, I find it difficult to find standards.
Yeah.
But when I use, let's say, some AI-based softwares to look at curriculum, I have seen certain standards coming out of Australia also.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, WACE will be aligned to these standards.
Yes. So if you go to the official SCASA website, everything is open and very transparent, right? Content is not a problem. It's how do you interpret and use it. That training, that assistance is what is important here. So while everything is out there in the open, so you can see the authenticity of where it's coming from, the backing of all of that. But then also hand holding in terms of you're a grade 2, grade 3 teacher. You want to be talking about these learning areas. You want to be, how do you go into that universe of content and pick out exactly what you need? How do you build your lesson plan? How do you tailor make it to your student needs? You know what I mean?
Incredible.
So that is the level of assistance that you get.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, one question I want to ask you was many of the other boards that are presently in India, the international ones, I don't want to name any, they have an annual fee basis. So, every year you need to pay till you can reach a particular number of students writing the exam. And then that fee becomes waived off. But generally, these fees are upwards of 7, 8, 9,000. I don't want to mention the currency, but it's that way. Without mentioning numbers, I don't know what your policy is, but what's the affiliation fee for schools or something like that? How does it work?
So there is an establishment fee,
Okay,
which you pay initially when you want to license the curriculum,
and you pay in India
You pay in India
to an Indian entity.
To an Indian entity.
Okay,
Kindergarten to grade 12, one shot affiliation valid for 3 years.
okay.
You pay
Establishment.
Establishment. That's called the establishment fee. That's one part of it. Okay. That's 7.5 lakhs. I can share it because
It's open, of course.
it's 2.5 per year, literally. You can't start a preschool today in 2.5 lakhs.
Exactly.
Can't establish a preschool.
Okay.
For that, you're getting an affiliation for kindergarten to grade 12, right? After that, there's a per child per annum cost.
Hang on, 7.5 lakhs.
Yeah.
For K-12.
Yeah.
Uh,
Valid for 3 years.
Valid for 3 years, which is the establishment period.
Yes.
And for that, we get.
For that, you get the license to run the curriculum.
But for 3 years.
For 3 years, and then there's a renewal.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a renewal after 3 years. But there's a per child per annum cost. And for that, you pay as you grow.
Okay.
So today you have 50 children, you pay for 50 children.
Okay.
Tomorrow you have 100 children, you pay for 100 children. Of course, it keeps changing depending on the number of students. So we understand that economy is a scale play there, and more number of students keeps coming down. And then after a point, there would be a consistent flat kind of a fee. We could, we can think of that as a model right now. But this per child per annum fee includes everything, right? Everything that you need in terms of implementation, in terms of assistance, and what your children are getting out of it. So I spoke about the identification number with the government. I spoke about the certificate.
There's LMS.
LMS. Then there's a mandatory 150 hours of professional development training per year for every educator teaching WACE.
Included.
And in that 1 year, when they complete 150 hours, they receive a certificate.
Wow. Okay.
It comes with the certification by the government of Western Australia. So teachers are also certified, right? They're growing their profile. They're building on their profile. Year 1, level 2, level 3, like that. And then eventually they can even qualify to become trainers themselves. So that is also one aspect to it.
And then after 3 years, there's a renewal.
No, this per child per annum, this is every year. Renewal is only for establishment. So what happens is after 3 years, there will be a proper audit. When the Australians will come, of course, there's a lot of regular hand holding. They're consistently there. But after 3 years, there'll be audit, more like a health check to see if Everything is met, you're doing what is needed, your standards are being met, the implementation is happening the way they would want it to happen, and then they renew it. So that's the
So being a government organization, I know that governments all over the world, including India, whenever they bring in something, it's always accessible. It's cost effective. So I'm sure you've done your SWOT, you've done your competitive analysis and things like that. Is this more accessible for schools
Definitely, 100%.
in terms of cost?
100%, because a lot of the times when we talk about the per child per annum cost, we see raised eyebrows. But what we don't understand is how the schools are not able to calculate every other added expense. You're running an international school. You know how much you're paying for tech integration. You know how much you're paying for teacher development. Now, you know how much you're doing for your marketing and awareness and all of those things, right? And books. That's another added cost, right? Now, you put all of, you would want to, in your math, calculate everything when you're charging the child, right? Here, there is one flat fee and everything else is included.
Yeah.
So it just makes it a
Makes
lot
it
more
accessible. It
very
absolutely makes it accessible, and it's all integrated.
It's all
And
integrated.
it's all aligned beautifully, and it
Yes.
takes us all towards towards a
Absolutely.
end goal.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. I think there's a after this conversation, my heart is filled with a lot of promise,
Wow.
and I feel like more schools can take on these kind of programs,
Oh, absolutely.
and more kids can benefit. And now it need not just be limited to the rich, if you
Yeah.
know what I mean.
Yeah.
We want to make it more democratic. We want to get more people in.
One of the reasons why I took it on is, for me, the impact was more important. And if I can turn around schools that are struggling with implementation of international education in their schools, I think I've achieved my goal. That's what I've set out to do, because I feel that there's a lot of appetite for international education. And when I say international education, I don't mean westernization. I don't mean bringing
Bahar ka.
Baharka and becoming foreign and going crazy like that. No, what I really want to actually achieve through this is the way that it just opens up your mind in becoming an individual more rooted, more grounded, more sort of aware of your own becoming. And isn't that what we want for our children now? We keep talking about future skills, future skills. That future is now, it's here, it's happening. We didn't think of a world where AI is going to become a threat to all of us. And if we don't change, if we don't evolve, it will become a threat. It is not meant to become a threat. It's like saying Kodak is redundant today, Nokia is crying. They couldn't evolve. We have to evolve. Education has to evolve.
I can tell you something. Why I'm so happy is because with WACE and hearing everything and learning about everything that you guys are doing is because I don't know if you know this, but 20 years ago, I'm not going to name any brands, but 20 years ago there was a brand of preschools that came up. They have 1,000 preschools today, and for 20 years they went to market saying they have a New Zealand and Australian based curriculum. Okay, then 20 years ago there was another brand of schools which started, which recently got acquired. And they've been talking about Australian-based curriculum. They brought a curriculum from Australian schools, brought it into India, and they made it like big. And all these schools were expensive and exclusive, right? And the fact that today the Western Australian Certificate of Education Board is actually here, and now every single school can maintain their autonomy, can maintain their own identity,
Absolutely.
and yet be able to be plugged into a system
Absolutely.
that allows them to bring something. So it's already been in India, in some sorts, in terms of philosophy and things like that. But now we have more legitimacy.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think
there's also a lot of misconceptions attached to it. It could be a curriculum, not a board. It did not have the status of a board, right? Because remember, there's a lot happening in India. There's Finnish, there's Scandinavian, there's Dutch, there's Swedish, there's a lot of these things that you were talking about, but none of them have received the equivalence and the fact that they can run as a board. So that is the biggest differentiator there. Just want
the moral of the story: WACE is a government organization.
Yes,
accepted by the Indian government,
Absolutely.
has 100% equivalency.
Yes.
Kids who come to these schools will write exams, an optional exam in 10th standard,
Yes.
or 100% exam they need to do in 12th standard.
12 standard.
They become part of the Western Australian system of learning.
Absolutely.
They will have a number which gives them a identity and recognition in Australia.
In Australia. Yeah.
They have options to do the ATAR,
Yes.
which allows them to, very beautifully integrate into the Australian system. If they
Right.
don't want to go to Australia,
Yeah. And globally as well.
and globally, if they don't want to go to Australia, the whole world is their playground. The world is their oyster, as they
Yes,
say.
absolutely.
Or they can even study in the two universities that are popping up in Chennai and Mumbai.
Absolutely.
And if they don't want to do that, they can go do NEET, JEE, or do anything.
Anything.
And they're going to live the rest of their life with a different mindset.
Mindset on.
Wow,
that was wonderfully summarized.
That's incredible, right?
Thanks,
and so many schools
Will.
should explore this. And if they have to, how do they get in touch with you?
Well,
Or with your organization?
yes. So we have a website. They should visit our website. There's an inquiry form. It's
What's
called
the website?
wace.in, WACE.in. And the website has an inquiry form. It has all the information that they need to know. And of course, through that website, they can reach me.
Incredible. Thank you so much. What a fascinating conversation.
Same
I
here.
think
Thank
this
you
is a gift to India, and I'm sure there are so many principals who should just go for it.
Thank you so much. And I
be so happy.
just want to close on one note that by bringing Australian board to India, we're not bringing the Australian influence in India. What we're trying to do is amplify and enhance our roots and cultures with a lens of a global perspective.